lineup completed on your screen. And you know, I mean, what to say about last week? They looked great in game one of both series, and then got really overconfident going into game two.
But they got to secure the wins despite that.
They did. But then you look at it, they faced Giants, they played against Origin, who, you know, both teams aren't exactly looking so hot right now.
Well,
so
especially last week's Origin.
That's fair. That's fair.
Reserve judgment now that we've seen a little bit more from them. But you're right, they're still making some of the same mistakes that we faulted them for in the last split, being a little over-aggressive, a little greedy, being cocky just overall. I mean, they've had revamped talent, but they're still making some of those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're aggressive in the early games, and you can tell they're still settling with each other, and then you line up. But I think one place that they're really going to excel in this game is that early game.
Right.
They're up against Roccat, who maybe are a team that don't quite have the same prowess there.
That is very true. But for G2, you know, if it does end up getting into those late game fights, that may start to be their undoing. Now, we'll go ahead and dial in on Roccat on the other side of the Rift, who had a 1-1 result for both their series in the last week. We'll take a look at their lineup for Roccat. Well, we'll take a look at the lineup.
We'll take a look in a sec, because...
No, wait, let's talk a little bit more about the gold, actually.
Yeah, we wanted importantly to talk about how Roccat progress throughout the game when it comes to their 10, 15, and 20 gold differences that you can see on screen there. So this just kind of highlights something Betsy was talking about last week, where he was like, you know, we're really not a good early game team. And now they got to go up against G2, who are a really good early game team. So now Roccat, they're going to have to rely on their whole lineup here to maybe not drop the ball early on.
Yeah, it is really scary looking at some of those numbers, seeing how they've been able to claw their way back into the late stages of the game against a team like G2 Esports. But I do want to explore that a little bit as we get into the early game. We'll take a look, though, at their lineup finally now. We're going to talk about G2 first.
Yeah, it's just the G2's gold. It's exactly the same that we were talking about here, where, you know, G2, they are the opposite, polar opposite of Roccat here. So I think we'll see that as we get into game. Finally, we are going to take a look at that Roccat lineup.
So I swing for 3, and I finally hit one.
You got it. You
G2 and their lineup there, but we'll take a look at Roccat in just a second. Yeah, it loaded up. Okay, Roccat, of course. Parang in the top lane, Airwaks in the jungle, Betsy the mid, Steelback the AD carry, and Ryze on support, along with Coach Grabs. Yeah,
it seems easy. How did you do it so easily there, Pyra? Just get it all in one.
I have a couple of attempts, as you can see. So the thing is, though, like, we talked about G2's opponents, right? Yeah. We talked about who they faced down, Giants and, of course, Origin looking in a very weak state last week. Is this G2's like first real challenge of the split?
To me, yes. Absolutely it is, yes. We were expecting Origin to be a different level. And, of course, Origin, you know, they had that one game where it looked better. But, honestly, G2 haven't been too phased. And when you look at how Roccat have been playing, we spoke about how Betsy talked about the early game being bad, but the draft and the late game team fights are great. So for Roccat, they've got a couple of different tricks up their sleeve. They got a bit of a different play style to a lot of other teams.
Oh yeah, their book is different, especially in that mid lane, utilizing the Vlad, which we started to see a bit more of now, utilizing the Swain. Betsy really kind of innovating before everyone else was doing it.
Yeah, they were a little ahead of the curve on that one. Here in Europe, we have seen it in other regions, but they've been pairing it then with longer range AD carries for the most part. We saw 2 games of Jhin come out from Steelback, you know, utilizing that composition where if they can't get through Betsy, they're never going to get to Steelback. A couple of games of Lucian in there as well, but you can see exactly how far Roccat actually extend these team fights back. This was one of the Lucian games here that you can see Steelback at all times is pretty much safe throughout this, but it was the Jhin compositions that really shone for Roccat, and there was really no way of Splice dealing with what Roccat had to offer in this game, and from there it ended up being a win for Roccat to tie up the series.
Well, I think even more surprising was what they were able to do against H2K as well in the first series that they played off against. Same results, obviously 1-1, but yeah, same kind of composition, and they seem to really rely on team fighting. They're always together. I mean, we actually dug it a little bit into this, saw that, you know, this is a team that when they do actually die, which it seems like a weird foot to start off on, they never really do it to solo players. There's never really like a pick associated with Roccat. They're kind of like live and die together. It's a team that has a fair amount of cohesion for themselves, and you can see them having a little chuckle to start this thing off. You know, clearly they have it together, and this is a team that we didn't really expect much from in a different iteration of it last split. a very different squad.
Yeah, and I think there were still questions on the Roccat lineup when they came into it. You know, you look at Perkz and Ryze, and we were saying, hey, look, they've got experience together, but it's an odd pairing. It was in, Challenger's career, which is, not the LCK, but the Challenger series equivalent over there. And, we were saying, do they really have the same level that we've seen from other Korean imports? And, okay, it wasn't clean all the time through in the first week of games for Roccat, but they had a good showing in a bunch of games.
Yeah, definitely stepped up in a lot of key places, even if they were only able to take a pair of ties. Really dialing in on Perkz up in the top side, too. This is a guy who had Jace permabanned against him in all but the one game. He picked it up. Didn't actually look that impressive on it, but he was still drawing a ban even the game after that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if teams are just respecting a little too much.
I mean, I feel like they are. You've seen how impactful or not impactful it was. And I feel like, yes, you have the ability to play carries in the top lane right now, but a lot of the carries that we're going to see are ones that can punish a champion like Jace, that can get on top of him and not allow him to sit back and poke for ages. It's one of those situations where unless Roccat want to commit to a poke setup and look to siege, it limits their options rather than gives them more, because they kind of will have a Jace and then they don't actually have engage unless it comes out of the jungle or the mid lane, and it's just a weird champ to try and jam into a composition.
I agree, but is Kikis the kind of player that's going to punish that? We really saw mostly tanks out of him last split, and I'm not 100% sure he's going to favor the meta change.
His Poppy and his Echo has been pretty good for Kikis as well, and those are champions that you would expect to be able to get onto a Jace. Yes, there were changes on 6-11 to Echo, so his 1v1 potential is a little bit reduced when you look at how his passive now applies, a little bit greater time in between proccing it. So, I mean, there are adjustments that we have to see exactly how they'll tip this top lane matchup, but Perkz has been somewhat of a 50-50 play. He either played the tanks and ended up kind of getting camped, getting put behind, and really struggling in games, or he's been able to become unkillable in the front line and pretty much deal with everything the enemy have thrown at them. So I'm wondering when he's going to level out in consistency.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of LCS still to play, right? We talk about it once again. It's like, oh, it's 4 games, but it's really only been 1 week in just 2 series that they've been able to play. But other teams have seen Perkz as a massive threat. That's why he was getting camped so heavily. That's why he was getting the Jace banned against him constantly. And obviously the focus paid off for most enemy teams. Him dying 5 times, most of all the top laners in the 4 games, him being behind a pretty significant chunk of gold in lanes. But is that where G2 want to focus? Do they want to try to shut that down? Because we saw a lot of big fights coming out of the rest of the team with Perkz still at the back.
I mean, I think you'd be fairly happy to focus there. Importantly, that was 5 deaths pre-15 minutes as well. So that was a really set of tough games. A lot of those came from the Nautilus game. Honestly, if I'm G2, I would trust in Zven and mithy to be able to win the 2v2 in the bottom lane. If it ends up in standard lanes, I would trust in Perkz to be able to pile on the pressure in the early game like he frequently does in games.
Unless he flashes forward and gets himself killed under tower, but
Yeah, there's that. But honestly, I feel like for Trick, Perkz really is kind of the point of focus where you can camp Kikis fairly effectively, get Perkz behind, and look to win the game from there, because I think you can rest assured for the rest of G2 that they should be able to handle themselves.
Yeah, we would think so. Just in case you guys are wondering, there was a slight mouse issue on stage. We should be resolving it pretty soon. We're revolving back here.
Yeah, we'll revolve the stage. The whole thing will just rotate like a game show.
We LCK now. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how these teams face off, because you're right. The early game is the roughest point for Roccat. They've admitted it. They know it. And more importantly, G2 know it. So we should expect some really crazy action early on.
Yeah, I feel like G2 should just come out of the gate swinging, and Roccat may never get to the late game team fights. That would be G2's game plan. But other teams have tried that, and Roccat have dragged them there and fought heavily with them in the late game. So if we get Roccat to that point, that has always been G2's weakness as well.
2 teams that definitely complement in that way. Viktor is banned away. The Swain's taken out of Betsy's hands.
So that tells you either Vlad's coming next on this line, or it'll be first picked, basically.
Yeah, and Azir banned too. Interesting. With the nerfs he received, he's still being prioritized to pick away from Perkz, and there's an Olaf coming up next.
Yeah, so for the Azir being banned away, not too worried about it being 100% picked or banned anymore, but it still will have presence. For a person like Perkz, a player that has used that to great effect and sometimes to overconfident effect in last week's games, it's a big pick that kind of initiates a lot of stuff for G2. They kind of get Perkz into the mix and get him going on that, and he tends to start a lot of fights on his own.
Yeah, well, the Ryze is banned away as well. The final ban for G2 is the Vladimir.
Yep.
And a quick pickup of the Kindred, which, as we noted in the last series, was passed over. It did receive some changes, but Airwaks really shone on it last week.
The thing is, at this point, there is a Nidalee available should Trick want that for himself. There were adjustments to Nidalee recently, but it hasn't been enough to take her out of the jungle pool. Kindred was a big pick for Airwaks last week, but it was also a liability at some sense, because early game he actually got caught out a couple of times, really couldn't quite stamp his authority on the game initially and turned the game around. I believe he got first blood, then died and picked up like 3 kills later, so we'll see how this set of games goes for Airwaks as he plays the Kindred.
Yeah, 50-50. Clearly they valued it enough to first pick it. A long rotation for G2. Let's see what they decide to answer with. We did speculate a little bit about some Irelia possibilities, but I don't think it's coming through on this rotation.
It could do. I'm not sold on it being this early pick, but people have been talking about it being very strong.
Caitlyn still a de facto top-tier AD carry choice. It's locked in, and we do have the Irelia.
Irelia is locked in now. Kikis is a player a long time ago in a galaxy far away when he used to play on multiple different teams in Challenger. Whenever he would play top or sub-top, Irelia was one of those champions that you'd be like, okay, I guess that's kind of what EU Challenger top laners do. So it's certainly an old comfort pick for him. I do wonder, it's been a long time since I've seen Kikis on Irelia. So now blind picking at top lane as well is fairly ambitious.
We're about to find out how it performs. On Roccat's side, their rotation, they're taking their time about it as well. You can't imagine them having at least specifically planned for this unless they know something we don't.
Oh, I love 6-11. There's so many different champions you can actually
everything's
pick.
viable. We got the Zyra
we've
pick.
got it. Okay, so I won't spoil the result of it, but Zyra was seen on EU LCS 1 earlier today as well. Be prepared for a support champion that is going to completely power out damage for a very long time in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Wonder whether we'll see the old Cloud9 combo and pair it with an Ashe. Get yourself some engage, get yourself a knock-up in there as well.
And now we know where the Trundle's going based on the deduction. So that will be our matchup up in the top side. Back over to G2. They've already secured their AD carry for Zven. Perkz will probably want to wait until the last picks before he decides to grab himself something. So we expect to see a Nidalee here as it is available.
Both
as well
compositions at this point, though, are looking for fair range from certain aspects. Zyra will create a large zone that G2 can't get through. Caitlyn wants to sit further back as well. Man, this is going to be a real interesting champ select, and as the compositions round out,
the Nami.
Going to be a lot of really intricate components here. The Nami getting locked in. Another thing that they can use to keep Caitlyn at range. Keep Roccat away from them. They got Poke coming down from Nidalee. This is kind of like what you would assume to be the start of like a Siegen composition when you look at a Nidalee plus a Caitlyn, plus a Nami alongside it. The Irelia wants that side lane presence, and that is one of the key factors.
But they are, dare I say, a little bit squishy right now if they do get dove into the back line. The Irelia might mitigate that to a degree, but there's not a true tank on that lineup right now.
That's true. And also Irelia has 2 different build paths. You can either go the full damage route and then you're squishy too. And if you get locked down, you kind of die. Or you can go the old route where you get like Randuin's Omen. Which very old setup.
I mean, well, with Kikis, you never know, right? Last few seconds tick down. Roccat seem to be favoring the Sivir and the Lissandra. Let's see if that gets locked in. Betsy will take it. And Steelback gets a Sivir.
Yeah, so normally we were talking about how Roccat would play this super long-range composition. These 2 picks turned everything around, though, because as we have a Zilean locked in
that was
for
quick.
Perkz to keep his AD carry alive plus get big stuns, Roccat have gone now full team fight. They've said, okay, well, we know our strength is team fighting. Let's go Lissandra, let's go Sivir. We got a Zyra to knock people up as well. Multi-person route. This game could be a real fun game to cast here. No I guess Trundle and Irelia are like the closest thing to tanks in this game.
Yeah, I mean, neither team has really a true tank.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. There's a little bit of death prevention from Airwaks. I mean, people are just going to get blown up left and right. Death prevention on the other side, too, with the Zilean. I mean, double TP across the board. There's no way this can't be exciting.
It's going to be a real treat to watch this bottom lane as well. When you look at it, Zyra coming back, Nami's here. We got everything, Pyra.
Yeah, it's all on the table. 6-11's a great patch. Come on. This is going to be good. This is going to be oh so good as the coaches shake hands to walk off the board. Both Young Buck and Grabs there. Oh, boy. I don't even know what to think anymore. This is going to be excellent.
I just love it. All 3 games of the day have been like, oh, okay, I guess we play this in the meta now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just bash heads constantly. I mean, the first series was absolutely excellent. We're seeing a whole lot of stuff on the other stream as well. I can't wait to see how this one shakes out. Roccat might be the first team to hand G2 a loss. We'll have to find out. Now, if you guys think they can do it, hop on Twitter at LOL Esports is the place. Hashtag ROC win. Or if G2 will continue their undefeated streak here in the European LCS, hashtag G2 win is what you want to be sending out. Let's find out as they lay it all on the Rift.
So, what does Zyra offer? Well, if Roccat want to think about the time right now of what does Zyra offer, pretty insane level 1. If you go for the
plants everywhere.
Routes. Yeah, you just kind of root 4 people in one place.
It goes in a big line now, yeah.
But it's the E that makes her level 1 like super good, because you just like lock 4 people down. But she's taking, I believe Q has been skilled by Ryze, so looking for those plants. And as you said, goes in a line. Looks kind of crazy. So, what else does it offer them? Well, you've got Betsy playing primary engage here, which, as a frontline last week, worked very well for Roccat. They had Betsy using the Never move to follow up, so they were able to really lock people down. Problem is, as we said, no engage outside of that really for Roccat. They're looking at like a flank from Trundle with a flank from Betsy, so tough to do, but they've got double teleport, as do G2. Big departure from our last game. On the side of G2, as we get the swap-ups from both sides.
We'll have a good old-fashioned Australia lane as we get into the swing of things. A little bit slow for both as they tried to out-juke each other here. We'll be seeing if they take some early camps to try and get that quick level 2.
Roccat are just hiding right now because they know their rewards topside. So they're trying to avoid the Caitlyn Nami, I believe. I don't think they're going to start the blue buff.
That would
pretty
be a
sure
little
they're
bit
not.
Okay. Mithy and Zven are going to walk right by here, and they're actually going to spot Ryze. There's the line. It hits Mithy in the back. In the front, there's the boomerang. That's a lot of damage dealt to start things off.
Good damage to start things.
They don't seem to be too worried about it.
Oh, and it's Thunderlord Zyra as well, so good luck ever surviving through a lot of these trades. But there is a Nami. Sustain up the Caitlyn. Caitlyn into Sivir as well. You're going to be able to harass down fairly effectively. This could be a fairly active lane here.
Oh yeah, very pokey.
Could be. At the same time, we may very well see Roccat concede a lot of the poke here.
Oof. It's a good thing Zven's rocking the Safari Kate skin. He's going to have to trek through quite a lot of jungle there.
Yeah, hope he's brought like a machete with him. Hack through the vines.
Let's take a look down in this bottom side. Kikis has already taken a little bit of damage to start things off. Parang's having a good time this game. Yeah,
and Perkz at this point is just forcing Kikis to kind of try and push his lane out to come past him to get CS here. Just frustrating for Kikis because he would prefer Perkz just be kind of crazily going ham on the wave and not really do too much. So for Kikis, it's going to be a fairly tough post-6 when you look at it. Perkz, once he hits that subjugate,
makes it a lot harder, yeah.
Yeah, you can't really trade into him until that revamped Trinity Force has been picked up. We will keep our eyes. Perkz mid, though.
About to talk about junglers, and Airwaks does not disappoint. First blood picked up onto Perkz, not respecting where the jungler could be.
Not respecting Betsy's engage potential as well this early on. I mean, we spoke about how Roccat say they're not a particularly good early game team, and Perkz gets lulled into a false sense of security. Claw comes out, lockdown comes through from Betsy, and they're able to pick up a first kill now. That goes on to the jungler for Airwaks. So kind of a repeat performance of last week. Gets the first kill of the game, gets the team first blood.
And he grabs himself a Scuttle Crab en route, looking for Kikis, hiding out in the brush, being very, very patient. Kikis, though, either knows something's up, game senses are tingling. Tricks up in the top side here, trying to wait it out, but he's a little low on health himself if he wants to go a hunting. Looking for Steelback. The spear comes blind. He's going to have to get a little bit closer in than he used to with the Nidalee changes. He wants to get the pounce on. Meanwhile, down to the bottom side, Airwaks turns his attention down towards Kikis, and he forces the quick flash.
Good start out by Roccat. Really, when you look at it, like Trick trying a gank topside when the wave is very far pushed but not in a position to dive this early. It would have been risky to go aggressive because of Ryze having the grasping reach. Bottom lane, no flash, and Kikis is getting TP'd on.
Yeah, there's TP coming in. Kikis has nowhere to go, and Airwaks gets another kill. The jungler picking up 2. We've been seeing that earlier today. Now it's Airwaks with 2 in his pocket.
Betsy and Airwaks together have been very effective here because in that situation, Kikis stuck around right on the minion that was getting teleported in by Betsy, so there was no real punish available, and he would just get locked down, and that would spell the end for Kikis. So G2 struggling under the early game pressure perhaps from Airwaks and Betsy. We'll see if they can turn it around.
So far, gold advantage off those kills, going over to Roccat, both in Airwaks. See what he's able to accomplish as he's good 500 gold against his opposing jungler. Trick really not having a whole lot of presence, tried for it earlier on up in the top side, didn't get enough, just succeeded in forcing Steelback to go back to base. We get to see Perkz and Betsy back here without their teleports respectively to try and fight things out. Ryze locks up mithy. Not enough damage really dealt. Steelback and Ryze are forced under tower for the time being. Betsy taking a bomb back in the mid lane. Still able to farm, fairly safe. It's pretty even despite the kill differential in the lanes. Airwaks does get another Scuttle Crab, but he's on route. They have the spot. Mithy low mana. They spend the summoner heal. Instant exhaust. They still have damage through the Wolf's Frenzy, which he's just stepped out of a little bit ago. Not enough to really punish them as Zven turns his attention back to Ryze. That's a lot of poke!
Ooh. Tagged down by the Piltover and stays alive. G2 have got a good advantage from their duo lane here that's on the top side. They did have 10 CS before that exchange. They did just have to use heal and exhaust during that little skirmish top side, so will obviously be a slight win for Roccat in that scenario, looking at if any other summoners were used, but Roccat managed to turn it a bit way around, but Airwaks is having a good game so far on keeping things alive. Perkz is going to try and trade.
Yeah, you can't do that into Irelia. Blade Surge for the kill.
Oh, Kikis just punishing Perkz for not having Subjugate available on that trade then. Kikis just takes him down pretty handily. I was expecting maybe Kikis needed more time until he had like the Trinity Force available, but manages to find himself the kill there with Perkz not really being able to effectively defend himself.
Yeah, mistake there. And fun fact, it's actually, I believe, the first time a Roccat member has gone down completely solo the split.
That would be quite a fun fact. We spoke about that a little bit heading into this game, about how, typically when you look at their how they've died, it's been pretty much always with multiple assists to it.
Grouping and gank attempts, and obviously we had Perkz getting camped out pretty heavily, but that time just classic misplay. Yeah,
I was just kind of rewatched that fight, so neither of them had their ultimates for it, and I guess Kikis knows the matchup fairly well at that point, better than I was anticipating while watching this the first time. We haven't seen a whole bunch of Irelia, so
back at it again.
Any window that he can trade, Subjugate this time Airwaks is here.
Yeah, he doesn't even need help from Airwaks, takes a big club, and he gets instant revenge. And Steelback actually moves up to clean the wave here. They want to swap back.
Yeah, they want to swap for bot lane focus on this one. They do not want to be in that Caitlyn versus Sivir lane. And now that Kikis as well got that kill, they were like, okay, well, maybe we don't want to be here. Whereas Perkz is confident in that lane setup and is able to turn the situation around for himself. That was slightly more of what we were expecting in this match, but then Kikis kind of thought, hey, I just got a kill on him, and then didn't recognize the Subjugate changes fairly significantly, that trade.
Yeah, they're going to try to grab as much as they can off the back of it too. Roccat trading turrets with G2, and the Ocean Drake started up by Airwaks. Didn't have too much trouble taking that one out, so we will see those traded away. Things still even. Roccat with that slim gold lead, mostly off the kills. Airwaks gets the smite down. 8.5 minutes in, we're just starting to see the trades back and forth, and G2 not off to a flying start as we might have expected.
No, not as we were expecting. So Dragon goes over to Roccat. Blue buff plus tower goes over to G2. Also, of course, Roccat got themselves the bot side tower. So, still a trade in favor of Roccat. And Roccat, honestly, this is a much better start than we were anticipating. We were anticipating G2 to kind of win lane, through the first parts of the game. And I mean, that raises an interesting question because we were talking about whether Roccat are the biggest challenge yet for G2, and I would say with how this game has started, you can pretty much undoubtedly say yes. That you know, G2 have struggled to cope with Airwaks so far in this game. We're only 9 minutes in, and honestly, Airwaks has been way more active on the map than Trick has.
Oh yeah, he has. Betsy as well has really been a lot of places using the teleport more advantageously. We've seen G2 typically spend theirs to just try back into the lanes. But with the double TPs, obviously, it might come down to the later fights, which we have seen Roccat excelling at in the previous week, comparing to G2.
Yeah, and while Trick has had a bit of a quiet start to the game, he's farmed up fairly well. Junglers are right even on gold right now. So when you look at...
That's pretty impressive considering the 2 kills.
Yeah, when you look at individual status, it's always fairly hard to tell from jungle matchups because, you know, when you balance the CS, some jungle creeps are worth a lot more. Some of it's lane CS, which is worth a little bit less, like that kind of thing. But it's not just the individual that you have to look at. It's the fact that Airwaks has been able to help the rest of his team, which has been working on the top and the mid lane. Problem for Roccat is their bottom lane setup right now. And Steelback is fairly far behind when you look at it. Airwaks is caught.
Oh, yeah, he does, but he throws down the Lambs despite we have a quick teleport in here from the mid. It is going to get canceled on up, and Airwaks still in trouble having to flash away. Now Ryze caught out Peacemaker. Zven going to net himself into the fray. And no one's gone down. That was a quick spear. But in comes Trick. We got Flora and Fauna in this bottom lane. He wants to go hunting, but he gets Zilean ulted. The Zyra will fall. Perkz manages to succeed and get that one, and Trick will make it out. A 2-4-0 on the second win for G2.
This is the play that G2 have been looking for right now because they wanted to get themselves grouped. Betsy cancelled his TP, whereas Perkz followed through, and that allowed them to have the man advantage and get themselves into that fight on the bottom side. It's what kept Trick alive under the tower, at least allowed him to respawn and stay alive. So G2 coming up big from that fight, and again, this is only going to compound this lead that G2 have created from their AD carry, and it's going to now make it a lot more difficult for Steelback in this situation because G2 are going to be active on the map. They're going to now look to push down the middle tower next. They're going to bring Caitlyn elsewhere. This is the initial catch onto Airwaks. I want to see, was there a stun? I don't believe there was a stun onto Lissandra there because you can see the spacing between Zilean and Lissandra in the middle lane. It was just a cancel out from Betsy, and then Roccat couldn't really back themselves away because of Trick pathing down through the jungle. So right now Roccat know that they're at least losing 1 in this scenario, and 2 as Airwaks stepped forward and gets caught by a stray spear by the respawning Trick.
And all said and done, that puts G2 in a really nice position with the kills and the tower secured. They get themselves some more freedom to move around the map. They get a gold lead as well. And wouldn't you know it, the next dragon's going to be Infernal.
Fights galore. You got to think, though, maybe that favors Roccat with this team fight setup that they have.
It might, if they can get the pressure off their backs. Betsy taking an ace in the hole here as Zven is getting a little bit of damage onto the tower. Perkz there speeding himself up. They could try to set themselves up to do this dragon. However, they're actually turning their attention instead towards the Rift Herald on the top side, trying to give Kikis a bit more of an edge. And this one's going to be blind because all the vision for Rockat's in that bottom side towards the dragon.
And this one's going to be fairly impactful as well because Irelia wants to be in the 1v1 for the majority of this game. So if you look at it for the next 20 minutes of this game, Kikis will have the damage reduction and the added damage. It wouldn't be enough really to just win the trades on its own, but when Irelia gets that Trinity Force, now is going to be able to trade even harder. And of course, that's not stats really that Parang is able to take away. It's not the same as like the armor, the MR. It's just damage reduction. You don't get that.
Yeah, certainly one way to beat a Trundle. We've been seeing those 2 bash heads, and that'll be a little bit of an advantage for Kikis the next time around. Dragon's a minute and a half away. Airwaks hopping into the jungle to try and help Betsy take away this blue buff. There's a pink ward sitting in there, try and spot them. As Airwaks keeps on going through this jungle. They want to secure as much vision as they possibly can. Try and set up for this dragon and make it a little bit easier for them to take.
There you go. There's a nice little infographic on the Rift Herald.
The more you know about Rift
Herald.
Herald.
The more you know about being around with no allies is the key thing, unlike when we saw it given to Peke in the last game, which I'm sure somebody has an answer for that.
There was a reason.
He just doesn't
don't know what it was.
To trade with him 1v1, and I'm like, I don't know whether there's a situation where Vane's going to get him one-on-one.
Well, Raya certainly tried.
He tried. He did try in the last game. A little bit more in the way of conventional AD carries that we see fairly often in this game.
Oh yeah, the
Caitlyn now.
Obviously expecting this prioritization, the Sivir You know, signaling, obviously we want a team fight, but it's just generally a strong laning choice as well. Works decent into the Caitlyn because you can spell shield Ace in the hole and so on and so forth. So a little bit more death prevention available. Honestly, though, some of the weak points may be in the composition. We talked about Zyra being really one of these new choices that are coming out and being a little bit more valuable now, and a lot of poke and a lot of harass. But this ain't the laning phase anymore, and Zyra is still pretty squishy.
She is. A lot of benefits to her, though. Good wave clear, good zone control, so...
Yep. Still gets damaged by the bubble. If we were thematically appropriate, it would just heal her.
Make her grow in size.
Yes. And eventually she'd be like larger than the rest of the Rift.
Plants become stronger.
And Infernal Drake started up by Trick here. The rest of the team zoning for the time being. It's blind, but you have to think Roccat knows something's up, with a lot of members stacking towards that side. Kikis up on the top himself, going to try and prevent the push out by Betsy. May not get there in time. Trick actually just able to solo this, not too badly. Starting to see that more and more with these elemental drakes.
Yeah, I mean, champions like Nidalee are pretty good at this. Same with Elise.
Yeah.
Kindred tend to be able to do it. Especially for Infernal. Infernal's like the closest to the old dragon when you look at resistances, damage, that kind of thing. It's not like the mountain dragon where it has 20 extra armor and MR, so everything you try and do to it, it just resists it for longer.
Yeah, definitely applying a little bit of a different strategy every single time. You have to. No, I haven't seen a Mountain Drake this game. Fire and water instead. Roccat holding firm in this mid. The game has slowed down just a little bit now. I think teams a little bit more uncertain where their power lies. Obviously, G2, they have this kind of disparity. You have the Nidalee, the early game pressure. You have Perkz, who kind of got off onto the wrong foot but still was able to secure a kill. And then you've got Irelia, Caitlyn, so late game is your friend.
Yeah, I mean, Irelia is about to take over this game. Realistically, for G2, Kikis, if he's confident on it, will continue to just push until someone from Roccat deals with him. Roccat do have good answers, at least when it comes to wave clear. Lissandra should never die to Irelia because, I mean, Aurelia's going to be the one pushing out. Lissandra should have a tower behind her and you just kind of wave clear. And then when you TP in, Lissandra just has better team fight presence. When it comes to the 1v1 though, Trundle maybe with Subjugate can take her.
Yeah, well, there's still the Rift Herald buff to contend with, but you can also see Trick kind of hanging out in the vicinity, not super close, but he's there if he needs to get in and involved to deal with Parang. I feel like they don't totally trust Kikis even with this Rift Herald buff.
Trick playing the confident game. He's like, I'm getting Dark Seal. Hasn't got any stacks on it yet after picking up the purchase. I mean, it's not even that risky these days because it's not like when you upgrade it to... so when you upgrade it to Medjay's, that's the risky play because you know then
well,
like
it's
fully
so cheap
committing
to sell back
to it.
anyways. It's like a coal, right? You're like, I'll get my use out of it and then get rid of it.
It's like you lose a little bit of efficiency if you end up dying. Whereas if you keep stacking it up, keep snowballing through, tends to be pretty efficient. Betsy.
Oh, and he jukes it.
Yeah,
Perkz still trying to chase. There's one more bomb, and he'll be out with just a little bit of poke.
Yeah, that's the frustration of Perkz there. Didn't have rewind available to put that second Q because he'd already used it to get the second Q, so didn't have a third. For Roccat right now, they're in wave clear mode though. They do not want Kikis and the rest of G2 to be able to engage. Kikis wants to go in. There's a tower there.
He does get locked up for a second. Plants are causing him a little bit of pain. So as long as they can land the CC, they can prevent him from really diving onto the backline and causing havoc.
That and it's going to drag him further away from his team because that's the thing about this Zyra pick is it's going to put a lot of distance between Roccat and whoever is trying to engage on the mithy.
Oh, flash into the wave. Mithy's caught out for a second. He does burn his own flash. Perkz will be there as well, but in comes Betsy. They put him in a frozen tomb. He's taken out. However, he's going to have his chrono shift to come right back up and be taken right back down. If they've got the damage, they do. It's Betsy, but meanwhile, Kikis right into the back line. Everybody is low. A double kill for Betsy as he manages to secure the pickup. 2 kills to none. Roccat ran that fight, but it was close.
Well-balanced fight from Roccat. They get the initial engage onto Perkz, force him to use his ultimate and know that they can follow up with the rest of it. So Mithy flashes out. Now they turn for Perkz, get the lockdown here. And Perkz doesn't get the second bomb down to stun Betsy in place just in time. So they're able to follow up here. Good Zyra positioning on the roots that come through. And then Airwaks with a perfectly timed ultimate. Kikis was about to kill him and get the last hit off the Q. manages to keep 3 of his team alive on low health. They can instantly turn, blow up Kikis, and get themselves away from the fight.
That fight right there is why they still value the first pick Kindred. The utility that brought was so incredible when Kikis was looking like he was going to be able to just wreck through the entire line. Airwaks, it's not the first time he's used that to save his teammates from certain deception, that's for sure.
And we got to look at this pick, honestly, with the Irelia. It hasn't got to the point where it should be dominating this game for Kikis, but this was in their first rotation. Irelia and Caitlyn.
Blind into whatever Roccat we're going to pick up too, yeah.
Knowing that there are, you know, at least decent matchups available. I mean, again, Trundle into Irelia, not one that has been seen all that much, but when you can kind of infer that Subjugate helps change, and you can see Irelia didn't quite get into the top lane enough to defend against Trundle. Trundle does have to concede a lot of room, but the problem is G2 team fighting with an Irelia is always very difficult, because Irelia has like 2 things. She either gets into the backline and annihilates the backline and takes him out, and then kind of sticks around, and if she can kill another target, it's great. Or she just goes in and dies straight away, never kills anybody, made even harder with a Kindred available here in this game as well, and then she just kind of crumbles away because she doesn't offer anything else. Airwaks is dead.
Yep, that was something they offered, but Mithy was the one who picked up the kill. They knocked everything left, right, and center. Perkz has to run away himself, speed boost himself as he ran straight into Betsy. He's having a hard time this game on the Zilean. At least in isolated situations, he just can't put out enough damage.
He can't put out enough damage yet, and also that's kind of not his role. Remember, of course, it's Zven that's going to take over later on into this game, who does still have a good lead. Now up to 2 items. He's going to obviously have that Zilean ultimate on him pretty much at all times when it's available and he's dropping low. So Zven should be able to rest assured that he's going to be able to carry out the rest of the fights as G2 need him to.
Yeah, seeing the dynamic shift in G2 after the acquisition of the former Origin bot lane for sure. Seeing Perkz take a little bit of a step back, the star mid laner now on a more utilitarian role. 20 minutes have elapsed into this game. Slight gold lead for G2, not hugely significant here as the ace in the hole comes out. Brang blocks that one. Everyone looking to get involved, even though it's an Ocean Drake right about now. Talk a little bit more about G2 and individual plays, because as a team we looked at last week, Roccat weren't really getting soloed all that often, but G2, they were the ones that were getting soloed more than anyone else.
Yeah, Kikis just had to run down, though, from the top lane to at least settle himself in mid lane, so releases a lot of that pressure top side. Is going to be able to back away. G2 had to be prepared for Betsy attempting an engage. But they got good ward coverage. They should be able to see him coming a mile off. You can see they're already pulling back down the river to force him away from these entrance paths, trying even just to go straight. Kikis is taking too much damage here.
Yeah, that's the cue that they're going to start moving in. Traffic cone comes down, flashes forward, there's the wave, but they get a 3-man Lissandra ultimate, and Airwaks starts to pick up one. Betsy picks up another. Zven, half his health is gone. Flash forward, Steelback, autoing, left, right. They don't have enough to finish them all, but they can turn for Dragon.
Yeah, Roccat, their health bars are low, so they got to be careful of the spears, but this should be a fairly straightforward Dragon. Betsy stunned up.
Not enough follow-up damage. Oh! That spear was close.
Oh, man, that was close. Lissandra managing to take the Dragon there. Man, that very nearly was play the game from Trick.
No smite, no problem, but they are breathing a sigh of relief. Roccat with an Ocean Drake in their pocket. Sven's going to take advantage of the opportunity to try and poke away the tower. But there's another teleport. Betsy, he's isolated right now. Who's he going to look for? Turns on to Trick, or rather they turn on to him. Ice Claw, he's going to try to get out. Bombs on, ace in the hole. Flashes. Do they have the damage? The spear connects. Tower's gone down. Kikis, he's going to go wild. A double kill. And they weren't expecting that one. Looking for 3, but he might have dove too deep.
Oh, Airwaks flashes forward.
Yep, Airwaks a little bit low. He's got himself a shield off thanks to the Hex Drinker. Perkz backing away, but whoo! What a few moments.
From great coordination in team fights from Roccat to really poor communication on the follow-up with the double teleport. It looked like Roccat were bringing both of their solo laners in. We're going all the way back. This is after Kikis took way too much damage pulling down onto Betsy at that point. Way over-aggressive. And that is just going to allow Roccat to follow up with this team fight. Zven dropping pretty low here, has to try and kite backwards, does a good job of doing it, but has to really respect there. Slow-mo, not in time on the Dragon, but from here, watch for the double TP cancel out here. Betsy thought he had Trundle with him. Turns out he was on his own. And Betsy gets taken down. Ryze gets taken down by Kikis, who TP'd into the middle lane, gets himself a turret. So big play out by G2. Really just swung that. They got the shutdowns, they got the turret, they got everything they needed from here.
And G2, you can outplay them. You can really have a strong strategic plan going in to face this team down. But time and time again, they make these massive plays that just drop your jaw. And this is the talent on this team. This is how well they've planned out their team. They're not making mistakes.
I think the problem is, though,
but still,
there was a fairly sizable mistake from Kikis to drag the team down to the bottom side. And then it's Roccat not actually being on the same page that cost them. It's the same thing again here. Betsy is pushed up top side. Betsy's getting caught.
Okay. Back off for just a second. Now, G2 prioritizing getting a little bit of vision around this Baron. It's 24.5 minutes. You wouldn't have thunk it just considering how fast everything started to accelerate. 7-6 being the kill score, but now Airwaks is the one who's caught, and Zven takes him down the wave right on past it, and Ryze gets taken out by Trick. 2 kick kills for the G2 side. Is that going to prompt them to start the Baron? There's no smite for 30 seconds.
G2 have a massive amount of damage. We talked about it, no true tanks in this game, which means people die real quick and allows for an Irelia to tidy up team fights fairly quickly. Look at this, Caitlyn traps out already from Zven. One entrance blocked. This Baron is dying pretty quickly here. No smite steal available. Ooh, went to 1 health if that had been a straight projectile.
And they just secure Parang on the back. Grab the Baron and a Trundle for dessert. And now they go right back towards the mid lane. G2 starting to pull ahead this game. 5,000 gold the lead. The Baron in their pockets. 1 Infernal Drake to top it all off. Let's see how it all happened again with those picks.
So this is the pick onto Airwaks. Just stems. I think Kikis, did he show that?
Splash.
Flashes, gets himself the lockdown. And that's all she wrote on that little bit of a fight. Watch the Baron go to 1 health. If there had been anything, if Steelback like throws, his Q is a little late, a little early.
Yeah.
Threw it out, couldn't quite get it. Imagine if that had been like a ricochet. Just bounces.
Don't toy with me here.
That would have been so sick.
Just, we've already seen like near steals on that dragon too. I mean, it's
a game of inches sometimes, that's for sure. Okay, we're approaching 26 minutes. There will be an Infernal Drake that should prompt the fight, but Roccat have got to lick their wounds for a little bit right now. They started really solid, but as the game's progressed, G2 have been the ones taking the fight to them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very frustrating game when you look at how it's progressed here for Roccat. Being able to take such a good lead from Airwaks play early on. Really just putting the pressure onto G2, but G2 have managed to kind of tighten everything up, pull everything together, and stop making a lot of the mistakes. They have so much damage. Trick going to help with that tower. You know, we spoke about his Dark Seal, up to 7 stacks on it now, so whole lot of AP Trick's getting from that.
Starting to siege up in this bottom side. Kate traps, Nidalee traps. There's really nowhere to go without stepping on something deadly. Keep Kikis isolated in the mid lane, but there is no one on him right now. Betsy comes in. He got a catch onto Perkz, but they don't have enough damage, and Betsy's taken out by Zven before Airwaks can throw down the Lamb's Respite. As he heals up, he's taken out again by Zven. A double kill now, and G2 are running wild. Kikis already was in the middle of that fight after the teleport completed. They just pull the trigger way quicker than Roccat can. 3 kills, an inhibitor taken out. G2 rolling forward.
Yeah, G2 are really punishing Roccat for their attempts at engages. Betsy's had some really good engages on the Lissandra, but this time he kind of forgets that he's not like the Swain or the Vlad, somebody that's going to be able to survive through a lot. Once his ult is down, once he's out of his Zhonya's, there's no real way of him staying alive in the fight, so it's either Roccat kill everything in front of them, or G2 punish the engage, and unfortunately for Roccat recently it's been all about G2 punishing, and now G2, they've got themselves a 10,000 gold lead that has been worked pretty much from the last 5 or 6 minutes of play.
Yeah, and Trick takes a not-so-risky upgrade path on that Dark Seal, getting the Medjais now. Definitely worth. Let's take a look at that fight again. It started off with Lissandra not getting enough damage onto Perkz.
And it's Betsy taking the claw into the Nami bubble. I mean, he'd already seen the bubble start coming out, and the claw came up super, super late. And it just punishes Betsy. Couldn't quite get everything off. He ends up falling, and that's the end of that one.
Oh, Airwaks, where's his health bar going?
Ryze.
Never mind, how about let's talk about Ryze. Zven is unstoppable. Double kill, still chasing in the front line. You know something's gone wonky when the 80 carry is hunting down the entire team. Ice in the hole's blocked by Betsy. He will not get another kill on that, but jeez.
I mean, that's pretty much still G2 now with an advantage that might let them close the game. Kikis going to push in the bottom lane. The rest of G2 are going to push through mid lane. These Baron minions are too much for Roccat to handle on multiple fronts right now.
Those are some big minions as they start to take down the mid lane tower and finish it just as fast. Inhibitor will fall as well. G2 can safely back out of this one. There's a dragon to take on the field. A big wave stacking up top. This game is theirs to lose.
The only thing that really stopped G2 from pushing to finish there was the fact that the Baron buff did expire. Who needs Baron buff when... Oh, no one saw that trick. It's okay.
Change the range.
That's okay. Caitlyn's got you covered.
It's a hard life getting over that wall. But G2, Baron buff expired, couldn't push all the way in. They've got themselves an Infernal now. I believe that's the second of the game. This was the beginning. Just look at the damage that comes out from this lineup. G2 are playing the we don't need tanks because there's nothing in front of us to survive through game. Zven had his ult up. He used it just a little bit late when Betsy was there. They could stand still, hold things. But, I mean, G2, from what was a very rocky start, their lineup has turned this game around. A couple of key little fights, key skirmishes, really punishing Roccat from what seemed to be such a good lead for Roccat.
Yeah, very strange to see them playing out a very excellent early game and then not really able to do as much in the mid. Obviously, so far behind in the lane. Perkz is caught, and he's going to use the Chrono Shift on himself, but Zven is trying to protect Perkz. There comes the tidal wave out of the Nami. They use the Zyra ult as well. It's just a lot of AoE across the board. No one's gone down just yet, though, so it might have been advantage there. Zven goes in, and Betsy gets the Zhonya's on, but a lot of damage dealt. Airwaks throwing on the Lancer Spike very low. Ryze in the front, but taking way more than he's giving. Zven with a godlike kill, running forward, wild into that team. He will finally fall to Betsy, but not before they secure 3 kills for himself even. G2 are looking to close this right now.
Triple kill. Hang on, Kikis wants to maybe end it. Oh, it's Perkz.
Yeah, he teleported right into there. One Nexus turret the second. There's no one left to stop them. G2 might have been a bumpy road, but they managed to drive it all smooth. 30 minutes in, and they take down Roccat.
Game 1 goes to G2. And as you said, it was a rough start to this game for the G2 Esports lineup. Did not look perhaps like the reigning European champions, but by the end of the game, they'd found their form a little bit and take over the game. Honestly, I mean, Kikis managed to take over the 1v1 as soon as he had the items under him. Zven absolutely taking over that game, ends up 9-1 and 4.
Yeah, that Caitlyn damage was ridiculous. And his range was insane, too. He had the rapid fire cannon to work with. No one could touch that guy.
I mean, at the same time, though, with the last little exchange, I don't think anyone gave him the memo that Perkz' ult was down. He's like, I'm going in, I'm getting everything. And then